Okay, continuing with the story. At this point in the story, I'm at my grandpa's house in Kauai. It was 2013, and as I said, this was the first time I ever told my parents and my grandpa about the shoe machine, and they discarded it. They discounted it, and they said, "No, we don't believe you. It was a shoe machine that messed up your shot." And and I wanted to get off Kauai and go back and talk to my mom and dad and try to, rekindle a relationship and have a normal relationship. But my mom said my dad refused to speak to me, and she said that I was a schizophrenic loser and I needed to stay on Kauai, and if I came back to Los Angeles, she would make my life hell. And I just wanted to, you know, reconcile and have a normal relationship. And then my grandpa was saying, well, what you really need is you need to get a job and become independent, and then you won't need your mom and dad. And he didn't get it. He thought, oh, if you get independent and you have making your own money, then you don't need your mom and dad. The only reason you want to talk to your mom and dad is because you want stuff from them. But that's not what it was really about. Mostly, even if I had all the money in the world, I would still want to talk to my mom and dad and explain to them about the shoe machine and try to establish just a normal relationship. But they refused to speak to me. So at that point, I remember I went online on my YouTube and I wrote like an essay saying how, God loves the people who are rejected and the people who've been cast aside. And I was referring to myself again. This is my ego speaking, but I really felt that. And I was like, I've been cast aside. I've been thrown to the side and discarded by my family. And I was going through family alienation. That's what I was feeling at that time. And it was really traumatic and really terrible. People don't understand how horrifying and horrible what it was that I was going through. And then, my grandpa, he's saying, I was continuing to post my quadrant stuff online, and my mom was telling me to stop. And I didn't know that she had my password, and she was hiding all the stuff I was posting. So I'm posting that stuff. And then I finally went on INTP Central. And I started telling them to look at my stuff. And they're like, what are you talking about? Are you schizophrenic or something? Because I didn't even have anything on my Facebook because my mom was hiding it. But I didn't even know that. This is how chaotic and crazy things were going. So I'm in Kauai and I'm trying to get my quadrant stuff out. And I'm not able to because my mom's hiding all my stuff because I didn't know she had my password. So I'm doing that. And then finally, as I said, my grandpa had said that I was a parasite, and he said that Jews in Germany were parasites, and I'm like, okay, well, my grandpa's a white supremacist now, and he also was like, he was kind of for the Bible, in my opinion. Like, he was kind of religious, and he was for the idea of faith. He was like, faith is important. And what he meant by that, though, now I know in a metapsychiatry perspective, is faith to let go and be in the flow and not to control things, but to let go and stop trying to make things happen. And that's what he meant by faith. But what I thought he meant was like faith as in belief. And again, I was like, well, no, faith isn't that important because, I wanted to invert everything because I was kind of anti-white, and I saw religion as, white supremacist. And I thought like that religion was used to maintain borders and maintain the status quo and maintain stratification. And I thought it was a tool used by the upper class and also the white people to maintain power. Like, that's why I thought that the white Christians in America wanted to maintain Christianity in order to keep the brown people out and say, well, they're not Christians, but really it's because they're brown. That's the way I saw it. I saw Fox News as white supremacists, Republicans, and all that. And I started seeing that my grandpa was, he would say like, I didn't like Ron Paul because I thought that Ron Paul didn't like homosexuals. At that time, I was very leftist. And my grandpa was like, well, Ron Paul has good ideas. And I was like, what? So I was very much leftist. And I thought that my grandpa was now a white supremacist. So then at this point, I just wanted to obliterate religion. So I went on INTV Central, and then I started to try to share my ideas, my notions that were anti-religious. And what I was basically saying was that, in my opinion, religion is just genetic Darwinism. It's just an outgrowth, and it's just a subterfuge of Darwinism. And so basically what I was saying was like the 10 Commandments. I said, people say that those come from God, but I was like, it doesn't have to come from God. Just think about it this way. One is like do not commit adultery. A lot of people think, whoa, that's definitely not Darwinian because, that's our, if we were just following our Darwinian instincts, we would be committing adultery. But I was saying, no, it is Darwinian to say don't commit adultery, because what do people want? They want peace, and they don't want chaos. And what is good for genes? Peace and not chaos. And what helps to create peace? Not committing adultery. Because if people are committing adultery, then you're going to have war, then you're going to have fighting and killing, because people don't like adultery because they want to ensure their own paternity, that their own genes are going in the next generation. So when there's adultery, then you get chaos. Then your genes aren't going to go on the next generation. If there's chaos, then your tribe's genes are not going to go to the next generation. Then your genes are obliterated. So I thought, these people say, oh, that it must have come from God, the Ten Commandments saying don't commit adultery. And I'm like, no, that people could have just through common sense wrote down don't commit adultery and said it came from God. So that's the way I was looking at it. And like, it's the same thing with like do not kill. Like, of course, people, oh, that must come from God. And I was like, no, dude, listen, do not kill. Obviously, people would say that because if people are killing, that's going to create chaos. Chaos is not good for genes. You don't want a society where there's a bunch of killing going on, because that's not going to be good for genes. So you want peace. And so you make a 10 commandments when saying, peace. And then I thought even like the Sabbath, I argued, well, the Jews come from slaves, right? And if you are being worked too hard, then there's going to be slave revolutions and there's going to be chaos, and that's not good for genes. So, having a Sabbath day, a day of rest, that allows for people to recuperate. That is good for genes. People are going to be, relaxed, and that's going to help your society to continue and your genes to continue and your genes to thrive. So I thought like, it just makes sense that a group that comes from slaves would come up with the law of a day of rest, a Sabbath day. So to me, it just was all just made sense, as the Bible was just an outgrowth of Darwinism. And when I studied the Orthodox Jews and they're having the women cover their hair and they're having the women cover their bodies and stuff, I thought, okay, yeah, they're trying to stop promiscuity. Why? Because promiscuity is not good for genes. People want to ensure their paternity. They want to ensure that their woman is not having sex with other men. So they want to keep the woman in the household and they want to keep her covered up. And I'm like, this just makes sense in a Darwinian perspective. And that's why religious people tend to be more conservative, because conservatism is good for your tribal genes. But in my point of view, though, I was like, but, now we're at a point where we can move beyond this. And the way that I saw religion was, I was just like, it's just Darwinism. So I elaborated it more on INTP Central. So I'm trying to explain this to people on INTP Central, and they liked it. They're like, yeah, this makes sense. This is true. So I'm saying like, yeah. Another example of how it's just Darwinism is, I said, okay, look how there's the Shiite Muslims, they're Persians. And then there's the Sunni Muslims, they're Arabs. And then there's and I said, well, why do they choose different religions? I said, because they're different ethnic groups. And I said, different ethnic groups are going to adopt different beliefs in order to justify division, in order to justify separation, and I said, why do people want division and separation? Because they want to ensure their own ethnic tribal genes' survival. And if you're mixing too much, then your own ethnic genes aren't going to be surviving as much. And also you want to, and I sort of illustrated how, in a lot of cultures, people would marry their cross cousins. And the reason why you marry your cross cousin is because then more of your genes are going to go into the future generation, because your cross cousin shares genes with you. So by having a child with your cross cousin, more of your genes will go into the next generation through your children. So I'm trying to explain how, and this is why people choose religions. And I was saying, really, they just choose religions. It's just a subterfuge it's just a signpost of their ethnic group. Really, it's all based around Darwinism and ethnicity. So I was saying, and that's why Jews maintain Judaism, so that they can maintain their ethnic tribal genes. And that's why, the British people chose Anglicanism, whereas the Irish chose Catholicism, and the Italians chose Catholicism, but the Germans chose Protestantism. And I was saying, because, the Germans are a different ethnic group in ways. They're more Aryan. The Italians, they have a little bit more admixture of, maybe some different genetic stock. And they want to maintain division in order to maintain their tribal genes. So I was like, yeah, so that's why they choose different religions, to justify war, which is so they can defend their genes, and, justify division so that they can maintain their own genes and maintain their own tribal genes. And to me, that just made sense. And I thought that even the genesis of religion was just essentially Darwinian, uh, why is it that it was basically, to me, the stories were all, the basis of it all was just Darwinism. So that's what I was trying to expound. And why did I want to say this? Because I wanted to undercut and undermine religion, because I saw religion as white supremacist. But when I was saying this stuff, I wasn't saying that. I was trying to come from a viewpoint of, hey, I just want to stop religion because it's not good. Yeah, I mean, because there's division, and division is not good, and we should have peace. But really, what I wanted was, and I didn't say this though, but really I wanted to mix all the races, especially the white race, and defeat the white race, because I was a leftist and I saw white people as bad. And so, and I think it's because I saw myself as Jewish. And because of that, I was more inclined toward that way of seeing things and that way of understanding reality through that leftist funnel. So I thought to myself, okay, so basically what I argued on INTP Essential was, I was saying, so long as there's different, I was saying the problem actually isn't religion, because religion is just an outgrowth of Darwinism. People just choose different religions because they are good for their genes, like, having the Ten Commandments, that's good for genes. And they choose different religions, different variations, like the Sunnis and the Shiites, because, the Persians will choose the Shiite, the Arabs the Sunni, because that maintains their separate genes. So I was saying it's not religion that's actually the problem. It's actually ethnicity that's the problem. It's Darwinism. And I was saying the only way that you can mitigate that is if you mix everybody. So really, I had that nefarious, what people say, that Jewish race mixing agenda going on in my mind. And I knew that the white supremacists saw that the Jews is wanting to race mix and stuff, but I was trying to argue that that's the best thing to do, and that's what I wanted to do. Now, really, I wanted to defeat the Aryans. I wanted to defeat the white people, because I saw myself as Jewish and more as a person of color. But I didn't say that out loud. I was just like, yeah, so long as there's different ethnic groups, there's going to be war, there's going to be division, there's going to be different religions. So the only way that we can cure this is if you mix all the races. And I was saying the best way to do that would be if we get a four-caste society, and instead of dividing people by country and ethnic group and all that stuff, you mix everybody, but you divide people by their temperament. So you have the INTPs, for instance, they'll be one caste, and then the INTJs will be another caste, and there'll be four castes overall of the 16 types. And the four castes will be like the Guardians, which are the SJs, the Idealists, which are the NFs, the Artisans, which are the SPs, and the Rationals, which are the NTs. And I was like, if you create a society based on that, now people would be divided based around scientific principles, and you can like channel and funnel people into the best professions based around their psychological. You can do psychological tests and stuff, and based off these temperaments and other testings, and you can basically put people in their best positions for work and for all that to create optimal efficiency and economy. And it no longer will there be division based off of race, because you would mix everybody, but you would and that would be a part of the plan. And the intention would be to mix everybody and divide and dissolve the borders, dissolve the nations and stuff, and have everybody mixed, but mixed within this four-caste society, which I imagine would be throughout the whole world. And I thought that once you mix the ethnicities, then religion will dissolve, because really I thought religion was just an outcome of ethnicity and a desire to maintain your genes. But I thought if you mix everybody, then you can't. Then that urge would dissolve. So that was my kingdom of heaven that I wanted to produce. That was my the new age, and where we transcend religion and we transcend race and we transcend. I thought then people would transcend gender and they would transcend homophobia, because I thought, homophobia was just another example of Darwinism, because I thought the reason why people were homophobic was, a man wouldn't want his son to be gay because he wants his son to spread his genes. Or like, even you don't want a member of your tribe to be gay because he shares genes with you and you want him to spread your genes. So that's why I thought there was homophobia. And, but I also thought that, there was the gay uncle hypothesis, and the reason why gay people did exist was because they accrued genetic benefit to their sisters by taking care of their sisters' children, and that would help their genes go on to future generations. Which, that was one hypothesis of why the gay gene existed. And I wanted to believe that because I was a leftist, and I wanted to just completely undermine religion. No, not it didn't. This stuff, I wanted to, especially Christianity, because I thought it was white supremacist, and I wanted to look at things through the Darwinian perspective and just like completely obliterate religion, because I thought obliterate religion and ethnicity. And I thought that would make the ideal society. So that's what I argued on INTP Central. And I was also trying to explain the quadrant model a little bit, but that was my thesis. And people were like, well, this is a pretty interesting thesis. That's a pretty good idea. But now, and I really attempted to completely obliterate and annihilate Christianity and religion in general. And I will describe how I attempted to do that. And again, though, I had a nefarious, sinister agenda, and that was the race mixing agenda to defeat the Aryans by getting them to mix. And especially, and a part of that would be by destroying Christianity, which I felt was something that sustained and maintained the white race.